Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back. It's 12 after the hour. Thank you for joining me. I'm Jim Blasingame, and you're listening to the Small Business Advocate Show. I'm glad you're here. Rich Galen is with us. Rich is a longtime member of our Brain Trust, going back almost 10 years now as a member of our Brain Trust. He is the chief correspondent at Mullings.com and also the founder there. He is of the Republican persuasion, in the interest of full disclosure, and a great political mind. And also, it turns out he's our Mideast expert. Rich Galen, welcome back to the show.
I mean, you say that, I'm thinking Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, Rich, thanks for being here. You know, I made a confession on Monday, and I want to repeat it and add a little bit to it. With regard to what happened Sunday, the United States taking out Osama bin Laden in that daring raid, I want to talk about Obama first, and then we'll talk about the guys who did it. But I have to say that I gave a lot of I gave as much as I could props to the president for ordering this, and so I thought it was courageous. It was politically courageous. But I have to say, there's one more thing I've been thinking about. I actually didn't think he had that in him. So I was wrong about him in that area, and I congratulate him on being the kind of person, being the kind of American American leader who would order something like that and have that kind of confidence in our armed services, our special units.
Well, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything you just said. I wrote about it Monday morning. That's what presidents, and I said leaders, that's how they earn their pay, making those kinds of tough decisions. And somebody said before I wrote it that everybody was passing around credit to Petraeus and to Gates and to Leon Panetta, who's now head of CIA, going to move over to Defense Department. But but the person said, if this thing had gone wrong, the only name that you'd be hearing is Obama.
Oh yeah,
and that's absolutely correct. And I agree with you. I am surprised, pleasantly surprised, that he said, as Eisenhower did tonight, we go, and I agree with you that he deserves all the credit because that is a tough decision to make at best, as you know, because of your what your family's done. In the places they've done it, that at best you're looking at a 60 to 70% chance of success, and this was a 100% success, and that just doesn't happen very often.
Well, and the precision of this long range insertion, and the success of this thing is, I mean, surely this has got to make people Americans feel proud of what our country is capable of, and it's got to put some of our enemies on notice a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, Asa Hutchinson, who was just on TV, former congressman from Arkansas and former undersecretary at Homeland Security, said this morning about all the intelligence materials that they took with them, that the SEALs took with them. He said all over the world, Al-Qaeda operatives are worried about waking up to have breakfast with the SEAls.
Right, and the ones who made it through that morning without having breakfast with the SEAls are filling out their change of address forms right now.
That's right. They're returning to their regular names of Bob Smith.
That's right. So what do you think? What do you think is going to be the long-term effect of this with our enemies, with the people we're fighting in the war on terror?
I think what we may see, unfortunately, is some kind of homegrown attempts to avenge the death of bin Laden. And the good news is those are generally, just technically they're really weak and they often don't work. That's the good news. The bad news is they're really harder to track because one nutcase operating by him or herself is almost impossible.
Like Waco.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I expect we'll see that. But, I was thinking about this overnight.
Fort Hood, I meant
Yeah,
to say.
that's right, Fort Hood. That's right. You can't stop one insane psychiatrist with a gun. Remember in the days of airline hijackings, we never really won a war against hijackers. It just sort of stopped. I mean,
Right.
It just became it just went out of favor. And I'm not so sure that with everybody, people are now saying, well, he was sort of dropping in popularity. That's nonsense. I mean, he was still a beacon.
He was still the icon.
Yeah, he was still. They used him as the magic recruiting tool,
Mm-hmm.
and he's gone. And there'll be people that want to take his place, but nobody's going to have that kind of the kind of reach.
With him gone, and if we can get Waziri or whatever the number 2 guy's name is, if we can get him, won't that sort of cut the head off of the snake completely? And even to whatever degree there is any residual units out there, aren't they more likely to be neutralized by the feeling of self-determination that's sweeping across the Middle East?
Yeah, it's hard to blame America for everybody's ills when America isn't getting in anybody's way. In fact, they're being helpful to these democratic movements, which, by the way, is part of the Bush doctrine. But never mind
Right.
that. It's a little bit like putting out a campfire. I mean, if you keep spreading the embers far enough away from each other, ultimately they die out because they can't feed off each other. And I think that may be the right metaphor for this.
Well, I just when I think about and as much as people can shoot at Iraq all they want, and to a large degree sometimes with cause,
Right.
even from me, you got to believe that giving self-determination a chance in the Middle East, whatever that takes, it can't be good for the 21st, can't be bad for the 21st century. What do you think?
No, and even in the depths of the Iraqi adventure, places like Kuwait were allowing women not only to vote but to become ministers in the government. That was unheard of.
Yep.
All the way down, up and down the Persian Gulf, more and more people could participate in their government. Not in Saudi Arabia very much, but
Yeah.
they are what they are. And then, quite to everybody's surprise, I mean, as we've talked about before, a guy selling flowers, in a little town in Tunisia, kicks off a firestorm that swept across the Maghreb and all the way around to Bahrain.
And don't you doubt for a moment, folks, that the Chinese government is watching this stuff with interest. You better believe that. 20 after, we're going to be right back. Well, I want to bring all this back to Washington and Washington politics with our good friend Rich Galen. His website is mullings.com. I hope you'll check it out. Quick break. Stay with me.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights reserved. Prohibited. All rights